It's looking more and more like Bethesda and ZeniMax as a whole are making the transition to the Unreal Engine and more for next gen, so let's talk about that. So as always, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I was alerted by this trend by Timmer222 on Twitter, so the credit goes to them for spotting this information. I'm simply gathering it all into one place and discussing it with all of you, as I have my own opinions on what's going on here. Let's begin with one of their studios that is confirmed to be using the Unreal Engine 4 already, and that is for a game that has already been revealed. Ghostwire Tokyo. You know, that odd game by Tango Gameworks that we saw revealed at E3 2019 and hasn't been mentioned since? Yeah, the one Akumi Nakamura presented before leaving the studio. That game was previously confirmed as using Unreal Engine 4, and that information can be found on Unreal Engine's official website, on their Celebrating Unreal Developer Success at E3 2019. Now we know that at least one of their studios is using Unreal Engine 4 for an upcoming title. Where does that leave the rest of their studios? Well, you have to base speculation off of something, so here's what we have to go off of as of right now for their other studios. Let's start with Arcane Austin, which is not the studio working on Deathloop. That is Arcane Leon. We technically don't actually know what Austin is working on at the moment. Could be Prey, Dishonored, or something entirely new. But it's apparently a fantasy game, and I'll touch on that in a moment. Well, it seems like Arcane, at least the Austin team, is making the transition to Unreal Engine 4. Let's start with the evidence that is easier to argue, that being 2 job listings for Arcane Austin. These job listings are for a senior technical engineer and a graphics engineer, with the interesting part being one of the preferred skills that is listed for both, that being familiarity with Unreal Engine 4. The reason this is important is because this preferred skill isn't listed on any studio that is known to not be using Unreal Engine 4, such as ZeniMax Online, BGS Maryland, etc. It specifically calls out Unreal Engine 4, which implies they'll probably be using it. And just to explain, the reason engine familiarity is listed as a preferred skill and not a required skill is because talented game developers can learn a new engine quite quickly, as we've seen many times in the past in the gaming industry. So if the person meets all the other criteria that they're looking for, they're not just going to decline their application because they haven't used that specific engine or aren't very familiar with it. But like I said, that's the most arguable evidence that Arcane Austin is using Unreal Engine 4. Here is the thing that basically confirms it. Senior VFX artist at, you guessed it, Arcane Studios in Austin, Texas, has something quite interesting listed on their LinkedIn page. Under their project section, their most recent project is listed as unannounced project in Unreal 4, and in brackets it says fantasy. So Arcane Austin seems to be working on a fantasy game in Unreal Engine 4, which is quite exciting. The question is this actually their own project or something they're co-developing? We'll have to wait and see. Now, before jumping into what studios you're probably all waiting for, let's quickly mention 2 studios recently acquired by Bethesda. First off is Alpha Dog Games, which is a mobile game developer. But what engine do they use? Well, they actually use the Unreal Engine. Then there's Roundhouse Studios, the studio behind Rune 1 and Rune 2. What engine do they use? Unreal Engine. So, do you see the trend? Acquiring studios and hiring people with Unreal Engine 4 familiarity. Looks like they're future-proofing their studios. Now, let's talk about the almighty Bethesda Game Studios. This is where it became speculation on Twitter and across many gaming news websites, as everything previously mentioned was pretty clear evidence of Unreal Engine 4 being used to some extent, but BGS, as usual, is more of an unknown. Let's start with the evidence for BGS Dallas. Senior producer at BGS Dallas has listed in their specialties Unreal 4 and Unreal material work. So someone that works at BGS Dallas knows how to use Unreal. That doesn't mean much. But then we have physics programmer at BGS Montreal, who also has these specialties in Unreal Engine 4. Again, these are simply specialties, so this would mean absolutely nothing if other studios weren't also making the transition to Unreal Engine 4, which is the only reason people even made this leap to thinking this could mean BGS is making the transition as well. I'm here to tell you though, that is most likely not going to happen. In fact, I don't think that will ever happen. happen. Let's start with why Bethesda and ZeniMax wouldn't want to be using Unreal for all of their games in the first place. And one of the biggest reasons is that every game developed using Unreal requires you to give 5% royalties to Epic Games. Now, I will say that after the Unreal Engine 5 demo, they have announced that this will only be after the first 1 million in revenue, but Bethesda well surpasses that with their games day one. And that is especially not ideal for a company that has always been well known for using in-house engines for all of their games that don't need to give up the extra 5% of revenue. So why the transition for Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks, hiring employees with Unreal Engine 4 familiarity, and acquiring studios that use Unreal Engine? Overall, if I were to guess, Bethesda and ZeniMax are simply making a big graphical push for next gen, and some of their engines aren't currently capable of the demands for that. So my speculation is that Bethesda is using Unreal Engine 4 only on a few select projects as a stopgap while they develop and/or upgrade their in-house engines. In fact, here's the evidence for that. We already know the Creation Engine has been receiving some massive upgrades for the Elder Scrolls 6, and I'm sure plenty have been done for Starfield as well. Todd Howard had mentioned on a podcast back in 2018 that their game in pre-production, referring to the Elder Scrolls 6, would be getting a new animation system. We also know that the Elder Scrolls 6 will be making use of photogrammetry, the technology of high-resolution photo scanning for people, items, and environments. We saw a glimpse of this in their 25 years of Elder Scrolls video last year. A great example of another game that uses this tech is Star Wars Battlefront and Battlefront 2. Those are the two games that come to mind of games that are currently available that have used photogrammetry, which I'm sure you're all very aware of how good those games look. Those games make you feel truly immersed in the Star Wars universe thanks to the photogrammetry tech that was used. So the Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be bringing us that upgrade that we've been waiting for with BGS games. Starfield may meet that demand, but Starfield is more of a mystery than the Elder Scrolls 6. So we already know that the BGS titles will more than likely not be using Unreal Engine unless something has dramatically affected their development process with these games, and the Creation Engine just can't handle what they're trying to do, but I doubt it. We also know that the new studio under ZeniMax Online Studios is working on a new IP, and for that new IP, they are creating a new engine specifically for that project, which is just further evidence that they still want to use in-house tech for further out next-gen games. Now, just for the sake of arguments, why would they want to use Unreal Engine? Well, in case you missed it, Unreal Engine 5 was just revealed through a tech demo earlier this week, and it looked absolutely breathtaking. It offered an in-depth look at Lumen in the land of Nanite, which was a real-time demonstration running live on PlayStation 5, showcasing two new core technologies that will debut in UE5. Nanite, which is virtualized micro-polygon geometry, which frees artists to create as much geometric detail as the eye can see, and Lumen, a fully dynamic global illumination solution that immediately reacts to the scene and light changes. A lot of people don't know how much this technology is going to impact games, especially Nanite, but I can tell you right now that it will not only change how games look graphically, but how games themselves are made. Unreal has also recently acquired Quixel, a company that offers a massive library of photorealistic mega-scanned assets and tools to go with them. So what you're seeing on screen is a scene using Quixel Megascans, and this is in the Unreal Engine. And all these Megascans are 100% free to use for anyone developing on Unreal Engine. So the next gen technology, Megascans, and tools that Unreal Engine offers have great value. It's honestly just a matter of whether or not the 5% royalties and transition to a different engine will deter most AAA studios from making the leap. Most large AAA studios, in my opinion, will continue using their in-house engines, which will also adapt with next-gen technology. So what's the takeaway from all this? Some ZeniMax studios, such as Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks, are developing an Unreal Engine. BGS has some signs of Unreal Engine familiarity, but nothing is concrete on if they plan on using it for some projects in the future. I would personally doubt it, but we don't know if any of their newer studios are working on other secret projects. We also know that some of ZeniMax's studios have very capable engines already, such as idTech, and other studios are in the process of upgrading their in-house engines or creating completely new ones. The ultimate takeaway you should get from this video is that the entirety of ZeniMax is preparing for next-gen graphics, and that is only good news. But that's it for this video. I will be sure to stay on top of the latest Bethesda news to keep you all updated. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please smack that like button down below, subscribe, join the good fight if you haven't already, and ring that bell icon to stay updated in all of my future videos. It'd be super greatly appreciated as always. And until next time, this is Epoxy signing off.
It's time to see what's next.